it's Karri Flatla here for this week's Friday Fire at Remax Real Estate, Lethbridge, and KarriFlatla.com. There are three massive mistakes that homebuyers are making right now in the city of Lethbridge during our historically busy summer market, which is great. And they're all to do with money and financing. So we have seen in the last couple of months, July and August, the collapse rate for deals falling apart has been ranging from 20 to 25%. So 1 in 4 to 1 in 5 deals are falling apart, which means the buyer and the seller come to a written agreement, there's a accepted conditional offer, and then within 1 to 3 weeks usually, it all falls apart and goes to hell, and hearts are broken. The buyer doesn't get the home that they wanted, and the seller didn't sell their home and has to go back on the market. So why is that happening, and can we prevent it? Well, we know why it's happening, and I'm going to explain that so you as a buyer can avoid the heartbreak and the mistakes that are happening. And you know, there's just so many things we can do to get ahead of these problems. So number one thing that we see a lot of, and I can't believe how often I see this as a listing agent, is buyers are not far enough along in their financing homework before they go shopping and write an offer. Now, there's a bit of a frenzy in the market right now, if you can call it that, but for Lethbridge, there's some buoyancy in the market right now that we don't usually see this time of year. Number one, we have some hangover from the pandemic. People got cabin fever, they're ready to go look for a home. But number two, we have historically low interest rates, as low as 1.99% on a 5-year fixed in some cases. Give or take. So it's basically free money right now, and people have this false belief that free money means anybody can go get a mortgage and buy a house, and that is simply not the case. The lending criteria is as strict or stricter than it's ever been, and you can imagine in a pandemic where people have been laid off, unemployment rates are historically high, especially in Alberta, that the underwriters at the banks in Toronto and Vancouver are scrutinizing mortgage applications. So when I get an offer, the first thing that I'm going to ask is where the buyer's at in their pre-approval process, and even better, are they working with a mortgage broker? Because if you're working with a mortgage broker, that broker is going to be more motivated than someone at a big bank to stick handle the file, babysit the file, make sure all the paperwork's done on time, and ensure that the buyer can meet their financing condition according to the deadline. Because guess what? If you as the home buyer cannot meet your financing condition by the deadline stated in writing in the purchase contract, the seller is not obligated to give you an extension, especially if they have a backup offer, especially if the market is hot for the type of property that they have. There's all of these factors. So it's always a red flag to me when the buyer's agent says to me, well, I think they're pre-approved, I don't really know what's going on. That is a red flag. So myself and my seller client are going to handle that negotiation differently, because your client is now a bigger risk. That home buyer is a bigger risk. My teammate and I would never take a buyer out to look at properties unless they were working with a mortgage broker or the bank very closely and are pre-approved or very close to getting pre-approved and have a very, very clear grasp on their finances and their ability to buy a home. Having a down payment and having a long relationship with the bank has nothing to do with your ability to buy a house. The underwriters want to understand your debt to service ratio, how much cash flow you have coming in every month, security of your current job, your credit score, and on and on and on. So protecting your finances and making sure that you are actually ready to go and buy a house will help you be in a better position when you go to negotiate for that property. The second thing that we're seeing, and I've seen in the past, and it just sort of seems to come up again and again over the years, is once you write an offer on a house, that file now goes back to underwriting at the bank, and they're now going to take a second closer look at all of your finances, verify all your documents, your paperwork, your employment, all of those things. Don't go spend a bunch of money or do anything to change your financial position from what it was when you applied for that pre-approval. Don't go buy a truck, don't go buy furniture downtown for the new house. Don't do any of that. Don't do anything to change your financial position. And if you want to buy something, wait until after closing day when you've got the keys, you've paid for the house, and then you can move forward. Because we have seen lenders pull funding, even though you've gone final on a purchase agreement and removed financing condition. We've seen lenders pull funding right before closing day, and now you are on the hook to buy that house and you don't have a mortgage. The bank won't lend you the money because something changed with your financing, or you were not fully transparent about something to do with your financing. And this causes all kinds of heartache and potentially litigation. So work very closely with your lender, or preferably a mortgage broker. And we can talk more about that in another video. Number 3, I'm a bit surprised how much I'm seeing this year. And again, I guess it's because our market's a little hotter than it's been in the past in Lethbridge. Hot being like, maybe 5 months inventory instead of 8 or 9. You need to leave about 2 weeks or 10 business days between the time you remove conditions on the offer to purchase. So when you go from pending offer to final sale, you need 2 weeks at least from that day until closing day. And closing day is when the money moves from the buyer or the buyer's bank, as it were, over to the seller's lawyer, as it were. And if you don't leave 2 weeks, you might not close on time. So you might be sitting with your children and all your worldly possessions in a moving truck, waiting to move into your dream home on closing day, and you didn't give the bank and the lawyers enough time to actually convey title and move the money. You may not get the keys to that house, and you may be staying at a motel or in the moving truck over the weekend or for a number of days, because it's not assumed that they're going to hand you the keys automatically because it's noon on the contracted closing day. So you need to leave enough time for that. So when you're writing an offer on a house, make sure that you're budgeting all of these timelines. You need about 2 weeks for financing and inspection. With COVID, maybe 2.5 weeks for financing, and you need about 2 weeks to close from the time you remove conditions until closing day. So I'm getting offers where the realtor is giving me not even a week to close. And you will pay late interest as the buyer until you can actually pay for the house. So if you're 3 days late paying for the house because you didn't give enough time for the bank and the lawyers, you owe the seller late interest now. So the buyer's carrying the risk in lots of different ways there. You could be homeless for a few days. So those are the 3 biggest mistakes. Just to recap: not doing all your financing homework ahead of time, so pre-approval, preferably with a mortgage broker. Protecting your financial position. So once you start that application process for pre-approval, you're working with the lender, you're making sure you're qualified, all of those things. Don't go on a shopping trip and don't buy a truck. And number 3, give the banks and the lawyers enough time to actually get you to closing after you remove conditions. There's lots of other things that we're seeing out there, but these are preventable problems. These are things that we can prevent from happening at all to get you to closing day on time with a lot less stress, and to be sure you actually get the house that you wrote an offer on. If you have any questions at all, just call me at 382-7335, or you can visit us at karriflatla.com. We'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, have a terrific long weekend, and we'll see you for next Friday Fire. Bye-bye.